Part 10. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 91. Chapter 91. I'm afraid it's not vanity. It was a rare holiday, and Jishu didn't want his two children to stay at home, so he kicked them out to play. Where are we going? Lu Ning looked at Lucian after coming out of the house. Lucian put his hands in his trousers pockets and said in a casual tone, "How would I know? Otherwise, I would go shopping with you. Don't you girls like shopping the most?" At this time, those guys were probably still asleep. "Last night we stayed together until the early hours of the morning." If her mother hadn't woken her up early in the morning, he would still be in bed at this moment. "All right," Lu Ning nodded, as she also wanted to buy some seasonal clothes. The two of them came to the shopping mall in the city center, which is the most prosperous business district in South City. Lu Ning actually doesn't like shopping very much, so as soon as she entered the mall, she went straight to the women's clothing section on the second floor. Wandering all the way, I still didn't see anything I liked, until Lucian pointed to an off-white dress on a model in a store and asked her, "How about this one?" Lu Ning followed his gaze and had to say that this guy had really good eyesight. The off-white dress is simple yet stylish, with a round baby collar that is playful and fashionable. The mid-length Korean-style waist design and A-line skirt are sweet and add to your temperament. "Please, give me this one to try on." Lu Ning pointed at the clothes on the model and said to the female clerk. "Okay, please wait a moment," the clerk said and went to the counter to check the inventory, then came over and said, "I'm sorry, this is the last item in the store. You see, this one on the model is fine." "Okay," Lu Ning nodded. The clerk was about to take off the clothes from the model. As soon as he started, he heard a voice saying, "I want this dress." I saw a woman in fashionable clothes and carrying a brand name bag walking in. She looked very young, probably in her 20s. Hearing this, the clerk looked at the other person in embarrassment and said, "I'm sorry, it was this little sister who took a fancy to it first. Have you not bought it yet? Besides." The latter turned around and looked at Lu Ning, tugged his lips contemptuously and said, "This little sister should still be in high school, right? Can she afford the clothes here? As far as I know, the clothes in this store are not cheap, and not just anyone can afford them." Even when she just graduated and started working, she didn't dare to buy clothes here casually. The woman's eyes were sarcastic, and she did not hide her contempt for Lu Ning. "I'm afraid it's not vanity. I want to try on nice clothes when I see them. I see many people like this. Even if you greet her for a long time, she may not buy it. It's better to sell the clothes you have here to me directly, which saves trouble and worry. What do you think?" The waiter couldn't help but a trace of embarrassment flashed across his face. After all, the little girl in front only said that she wanted to try it on, but did not say that she would definitely buy it, but the other party directly said that she would buy it. Logically speaking, it is indeed the little girl in front who took a fancy to it first, so she should be allowed to try it first. But if the other party tries it but doesn't buy it, wouldn't it mean that she missed out on a sale in vain? At the end of the day, whoever buys the clothes is the real god. Lu Ning originally wanted to forget it and give the clothes to the other party directly. There was no need to fight with others over a piece of clothing. But Lucian heard Lucian say, "Who said we can't afford it? We want these clothes. Please wrap them up for us." End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 92. Chapter 92. It turns out she is your daughter. Who said we can't afford it? We want this dress. Please wrap it up for us. Lucian couldn't stand the woman's arrogant attitude and said to the female shop assistant angrily. He happened to still have the food money that this girl transferred to him last time in his mobile phone. Before he could give it to Jishu, he thought it should be enough to buy this dress. Anyway, her mother never thought of asking this girl to pay. It would be good to use it to buy clothes for this girl. I guess her mother wouldn't say anything even if she knew. The woman's eyes immediately fell on Lucien, and she looked up and down, then looked at Lu Ning beside him, and said with a slight "Hey, you have a boyfriend at such a young age? Let your little boyfriend do his parents know that he bought you such expensive clothes? I mean, girls still have to respect themselves. They start using their faces to trick boys into paying off at a young age. I don't know if your parents can afford it when they grow up. How I usually educate you." Lu Ning's face couldn't help but turn cold at this moment. She didn't originally intend to fight with the other party, but after hearing what the other party said, she couldn't help it. No matter how good-tempered she was, no matter how my parents don't know how to educate, at least they can't. He told me what it meant to be on a first-come, first-served basis, and he didn't let me grab what others wanted. You. The woman couldn't help but stiffen her expression, and then stared at her with a dark face. "Humph, you have sharp teeth and a sharp mouth. You didn't learn well at a young age. If you do such a shameless thing, your parents should really be punished. Students, take a good look." "Are you sure?" At this time, a male voice sounded. I saw a middle-aged man walking in with a mobile phone in his hand. It looked like he had just answered the call outside. The woman turned around and complained to the man coquettishly, "Husband, you came just in time. I have taken a fancy to a dress. The day after tomorrow is Ming Meng's birthday. I plan to buy it and give it to her. As you know, I like the white skirt the most, but these two high school students insist on grabbing it from me. Isn't it just a piece of clothing? Let's go look elsewhere," the man said impatiently. "No, I want this one," the woman said calmly. "Then give them some money and ask them to let them go," the man said, taking out his wallet from his pocket and preparing to send Lu Ning and Lucien away with the money. However, when he saw clearly that it was Lu Ning, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. "Ning Ning." Hearing his voice, the woman glanced at Lu Ning suspiciously, then looked at him again and said, "Hubby, do you know this girl?" Lu Ning recognized the man as soon as he entered the door, and then called out, "Dad." The sound of "Dad" made the woman's eyes widen. She knew that the other party had a daughter, but she heard that the daughter was awarded to her mother during the divorce. She did not expect that the first meeting would be under such circumstances. Lu Ning's dad made the man's face soften a lot. Then he pointed at Lu Ning and said to the woman, "This is my daughter, Lu Ning." He pointed at the woman again and said, "This is your aunt Lu Meng." The woman looked Lu Ning up and down again with critical eyes. "So she is your daughter? I am not the one who said you should take good care of her. I don't know how your ex-wife usually educates her, so she started messing around with men when she was young. Although she follows her mother, you are also her father. If something happens, your real father will also be embarrassed." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 93. Chapter 93. She can't let the other party lose. Ning Ning, what's going on? Hearing this, the man frowned and looked at Lu Ning and Lucien next to her. His face became obviously ugly and he said, "Who is this guy? Your mother usually takes care of you like this. Does she know about your puppy love?" "I don't have puppy love," Lu Ning said. The woman on the side snorted lightly. "We have already hit you, and you are still making excuses. Do you really think that your father and I are blind?" Lu Ning raised her eyes and looked at the other party. "I don't know if my dad is blind, but you are indeed quite blind, otherwise you wouldn't come up to grab something that others have already taken a liking to." Of course, her dad's his eyes weren't much better. "You." The woman's face suddenly turned ferocious. "If I wasn't worried about being in public, I'd probably scratch him on the spot. How to talk to elders. When Lu Yanyan heard this, his face could not help but become colder, and he scolded, "I saw it with my own eyes, and you still don't admit it. Tell me your mother's phone number, and I will ask her now how she manages it. Yours. If she really can't take care of you, send you back to me. If a girl doesn't love herself, who does she want to embarrass?" After the two divorced, Tang Li blocked the other party's number. In these years, I have not asked for alimony from the other party, and I have not contacted the other party. Of course, Lu Yanyan has never taken care of Lu Ning in these years. Lu Ning couldn't bear to hear the other party say something bad about her mother. She didn't blame the other party for their divorce. After all, it was their adult's choice. But the other party was not qualified to accuse her mother. After all, it was Ms. Tang Li who had worked hard to raise her over the years. Although Ms. Tang Li has cut off contact with the other party, it is not difficult for the other party to really want to visit her based on her ability. However, the other party has not visited her even once during this period. It was probably not only her mother's fault, but also her. When they got divorced, Lu Yanyan originally disagreed with her following Tang Li. The Lu family was not short of money, so it was naturally impossible for the woman to take the child away. But Ms. Tang Li insisted on filing a lawsuit in order to fight for her custody rights. The judge asked her opinion, and she chose to follow Tang Li. Her mother would rather give her nothing to take her away, and she couldn't let the other party lose. "My mother takes good care of me. I don't think there's any problem," she said. "It's just that your taste is not very good." As she said that, her eyes fell on the woman next to him. It is self-evident what the so-called poor vision refers to. Lu Yanyan frowned and said with increasing dissatisfaction, "How do you speak? Is this the attitude your mother taught you to treat your elders? After all, she is also your aunt." Lu Ning looked at the woman and said, "She should be a few years older than me. Are you sure you want me to call you aunt? It doesn't matter how older she is than you. She is an elder and you should respect her." Seeing the other party contradicting him again and again, Lu Yanyan felt that his authority as a father had been challenged, and he felt more and more that Tang Li had not taught her well. Lu Ning suddenly said, "Have you two obtained the certificates? Without the certificates, they are not considered elders." Hearing this, the woman reached out and took Lu Yanyan's arm, and said with a proud face, "Although I haven't taken it yet, it will be soon." Then she turned her head and looked at Lu Yanyan. "Really, husband?" Lu Yanyan coughed and said, "We'll talk about this later. Let's talk about the matter at hand first." End of this chapter. The school sweetheart soft green plum is sweet and wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 94. Chapter 94, I have grown up and now know how to fight people. Lu Yanyan, like most men, is restless. There have been many women coming and going around him over the years. Most of them are interested in his money, and he knows this, so he only talks about money and not love. The speed of changing women is not to say that it is faster than changing clothes, but it is not less. Lu Meng is just one of his many girlfriends. It was just a joke, and as for getting a marriage certificate, he had never thought about it. "No, I have thought about it, but there are prerequisites." Lu Ning understood. Judging from her scumbag father's appearance, he probably had no intention of getting the certificate from him. When the woman heard this, she immediately said unhappily, "Husband, you clearly said that you would get the certificate when I am pregnant with the baby. Could you be lying to me?" "You're not pregnant yet." Lu Yanyan coughed and didn't really want to continue the topic. He only had one daughter, Lu Ning, in his life, and she was taken away by his ex-wife. Over the years, what he longed for most was to have a son, but among the women around him, none of them was pregnant. The more this is the case, the more powerful he will be in finding women. He was hoping that someone would give him a son. So he promised them that as long as they got pregnant and gave birth to a son, they would get the certificate. But he said this not only to Lu Meng, but also to other women. The woman snorted softly and said, "I'm so young, it's only a matter of time before I get pregnant. But you really need to take good care of your daughter. I don't want my son to be born with a sister who doesn't know how to behave." It looked as if her son was already in her belly. "Then you have to come out as husband. Oh, by the way, I have to make sure that the baby will be Uncle Lou's." Lucien on the side couldn't stand the shy and pretentious look of the other party, so he said coldly. The corners of Lu Ning's mouth twitched slightly, trying not to laugh. He glanced at the guy from the corner of his eye. "As I have grown up, I now know how to fight with others." Lu Mens turned pale and glared at him fiercely. "Wild boy, what do you want?" Lucien shrugged and said, "I don't want to remind you, your worries will not exist. If you really want to have a son, it's hard to say whether you will have a misbehaving sister, but there will definitely be a misbehaving mother. Instead of worrying about this, you should worry about whether you will embarrass your future son." "Who do you think doesn't know how to behave?" Lu Meng suddenly screamed, his voice cracking with excitement. "Lucien, isn't it obvious? You are a man in his 20s and an old man in his 40s. To put it bluntly, isn't it just for money? Could it be for love? What do you call someone with a status like yours? Come on? Oh, by the way, mistress. You see, that doesn't sound like a very honorable and upright image. If I were your future son, I wouldn't even want to come into this world myself. If you are not upright, I don't know how you got the nerve to lecture others. You." Lu Meng was suddenly stripped of his face and was very angry. It just so happens that her identity is really no different from that of a mistress. However, this is also an opportunity. Then he turned around, looked at Lu Yanyan and said, "You just watch your daughter and the wild boy she hooked up with who knows where, bullying me like this. Listen to what they said, I am a good girl, innocent. Now I am being called your mistress. I don't care, you have to explain it to me, otherwise I will never have the dignity to go out in the future." End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 95. Chapter 95 Heartbroken. As soon as Lucien's words came out, not only Lu Meng's face looked ugly, but also Lu Yanyan's face looked a little worried. The other party is talking to an old man. Doesn't the old man refer to him? In front of his daughter, a brat who appeared out of nowhere said this, and Lu Yanyan was filled with anger in his chest. He immediately glared at Lucien and said, "I am talking to my daughter, when will it be your turn as an outsider to interrupt? Where are your parents? I would like to ask them carefully, do they know that you are coaxing and seducing my daughter? Lucien, don't worry about whether my parents know it or not. But you, how did you become a father? It was obviously this woman who ran out first and tried to take away the clothes that your daughter was interested in first, and she even said that she refused to do it. Damn, you are a father who doesn't protect your daughter, but you actually listen to the instigation of women outside and teach your daughter indiscriminately. It's like what others said, if you have a stepmother, you have a stepfather." At this moment, Lucien couldn't help but feel a little sorry for the girl. "I used to feel that it was a bit pitiful for the little girl to have no father. As an older brother, he should take better care of her, but now I feel that having such a father is worse than not having one at all." "You." Lu Yanyan's face turned dark. With his current status, there are really not many people who can scold him, but now he is being pointed at and scolded by his daughter's peers. He just feels humiliated and the anger in his heart can be imagined. Pian Lucien is also a master who is not afraid of heaven and earth. He can defend 3 points when there is no reason, let alone when there is reason. What are you? Am I wrong? Lu Yanyan was annoyed, but he couldn't save his face to argue with a junior in public, so he could only turn to Lu Ning and scolded, "Who do you know here? Ask your mother to call me later. I have to be careful." Talk to her about your parenting issues. The other party is always like this. He is used to giving orders at all times, as if everyone is his subordinate and must obey his instructions. This was the case at home before, but now they are divorced. He actually thinks that he can do it with just one word. Make others obey him. Ms. Tang Li in the past was not willing to spoil him, and now Ms. Tang Li would not even care about him. I know, Lu Ning didn't want to pay attention, but she also didn't want to continue to conflict with the other party outside. After all, the commotion was too ugly, and it was just for passers-by to watch. She would pass on what he said. Whether Ms. Tang Li would make this call was none of her business. What's more, she and Lu Xian have a clear conscience, and her mother will only stand on her side even if she knows what happened. If you really make a phone call, you can only scold the other party. Lu Meng wanted to say something else, but looking at Lu Yanyan's face, he knew that if the fuss continued, the other party would probably be annoyed with her as well. It would be better to wait until they were alone and take the opportunity to mention the matter of getting the certificate. Even if the other party disagrees this time, it doesn't matter. She was pointed at and scolded by the boy next to his daughter as his mistress, and he had to compensate and appease her. In short, you won't suffer any loss. She is willing to endure hardships and follow the other party, not because she wants to see the other party being generous. It would be great if she could succeed in being Mrs. Lu, but even if it doesn't work, she can still make a fortune from the other party, which is much better than her hard work at work. These days, no matter who you are, men are the same. The key is to make yourself live a good life. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is sweet and wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 96. Chapter 96, It's not okay to call me sister, but it's okay to call me aunt. Lu Ning did not buy the skirt in the end. It wasn't that Lu Meng insisted on snatching it from her, but seeing Lu Yanyan made her suddenly lose interest in buying the skirt. She didn't want to think of the two of them when she put on that dress in the future. There is no need to spend money to trouble yourself. After coming out of the mall, Lu Ning looked at Lu Xian. You just said that it's hard to tell if you have a misbehaving sister. What do you mean? Did I do something that made you misunderstand me and make you think I'm misbehaving? He was obviously calm. His tone sounded like a death threat. No, that's not what I meant. Lu Xian shook his head hurriedly. He was just trying to speak quickly and didn't think much about it. When he saw this girl suddenly mention it, she seemed to be settling accounts after the fall, and he suddenly got excited and explained hurriedly, looking at my uncle, I have no intention of marrying her. Naturally, the son she gave birth to will not be able to call you sister. I don't know who was unlucky enough to have such a stepmother. We can't tell, right? That's not necessarily the case, Lu Ning said. In case she is upset, I can't guarantee that my father will really marry her at his father's age. Heirs must be the most important thing. Although it is just a prank, but if anything happens, if the other party is really pregnant, it is not impossible for the mother to marry into the Lu family based on the son's worth. Then you are following Aunt Tang, and what happens there has nothing to do with you. This sister, they can call her whomever they want, so we just don't recognize her. Lu Xian chatted, trying to make up for his slip of the tongue. Lu Ning didn't really intend to argue with the other party. After all, the other party was just trying to vent his anger. Just thinking about Lu Yanyan, Lu Ning couldn't help but feel a little lower. Originally, she still had some expectations for this father, but at that moment, the other party had shattered her last expectation. She was very grateful that her mother had firmly taken her away. If she stays in the Lu family, given Lu Yanyan's temperament, she will probably be left to the care of a nanny, and then she will be restricted in every way. Maybe because of the instigation of his girlfriends, he would come to scold her as a father from time to time. If we find another stepmother for her and give birth to a son, I'm afraid her situation in that family will be even more embarrassing. Lucien noticed that the girl was in a bad mood and guessed that it was probably because of her father. He raised his hand and rubbed her head and said, "It's okay. Your father doesn't love you. There is also brother. From now on, brother will love you." Lu Ning rolled her eyes at him. "Who hurt you?" "But my mood got better again because of this guy," Lucien said with a hurt expression as if his good intentions were being misunderstood. "Don't I see you sad? I'm so kind to comfort you, but you still don't appreciate it? Do you know how many people are outside, waiting in line for my brother to love them? Then you go and love them." Lu Ning snorted, but she didn't care. "How can that be okay? You are my sister and I love you. What does it matter to me? Do you really think that he is full and can't hold on?" "Lucien, why do you like to call me sister?" Lu Ning looked at him coldly and asked. "Lucien, otherwise, what would it be called?" Lu Ning thought for a while. "You can call me Lu Ning like others, or you can call me Sister Ning." "Ha," Lucien stared at her with a smile but not a smile. Just when Lu Ning thought that the other party would say it was a good idea, the latter said slowly, "You can't call me sister, but you can call me aunt." End of this chapter. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 97. Chapter 97 Treat You Like an Ant. What? Lu Ning was stunned. Lucien wants to say, "Be my brother's girlfriend, and I will treat you like an ant from now on." However, he just thought about this sentence in his heart. If he really said it out loud, this girl would definitely think that he was sick. "It's nothing. If you don't want to buy it, just go back." Lucien avoided her question and walked forward with long legs. Lu Ning stared at the guy's slender back and felt that the guy had been talking a lot lately. Back to school on Monday. As soon as I entered the classroom, I saw that everyone was as listless as eggplants beaten by frost. "What's wrong with everyone?" Lu Ning blinked, returned to her seat, and asked Jian Nian, who was also wilted, in confusion. Jian Nian raised his head and said quietly, "My boss just came to inform me that the midterm exam will start this Wednesday." "That's it?" "Lu Ning, didn't you already know that there will be a midterm test this month, either this week or next week? How could everyone have such a big reaction?" Jian Nian sighed and continued, "A top student like you will naturally not understand how bad students like us are afraid of exams. I originally thought that the exam would be next week, but who knew it would suddenly be advanced? What's more, I heard that after taking the exam, you will have to fill out the application form for liberal arts and science classes." At this point, Shen Yu in the front row turned around and said, "By the way, what are your plans?" "What are your plans?" "Divided into classes, are you going to choose literature or theory?" Jian Nian glanced at Lu Ning next to her, then put her arm around him and said, "I will choose whatever Ning Ning chooses." Shen Yu snorted lightly and hit her rudely, "Come on, Sister Ning's results mean you can choose arts and sciences with your eyes closed. With your results, how dare you choose science?" Jian Nian gritted his teeth and glared at the other person and said, "My grades in science are not as good as those in liberal arts, but they are not as bad as you said, right? Besides, who said Ning Ning must choose science? Shen Yu, do you need to say this? With the results of the third brother, he must choose a doctor. Sister Ning will marry the chicken and follow the chicken, why can't she choose a doctor as well?" "I choose the article," Lu Ning said. "Sister Ning, are you serious?" Shen Yu was stunned for a moment and looked at her with wide eyes. "Yeah," Lu Ning nodded. Although her scores in liberal arts and science are not far behind, relatively speaking, liberal arts has an advantage, and I heard that the difficulty of science will increase after the second year of high school. The college entrance examination is like an army crossing a single plank bridge, with no room for error. It is safer to choose liberal arts. Also, what does it mean to marry a chicken and follow the chicken? I have nothing to do with that guy. There is no such thing as choosing science because of someone. Shen Yu couldn't help but slapped himself and said, I said something wrong. Sister Ning, you don't remember the faults of villains, so just treat what I just said as a fart. Jian Nian couldn't help laughing, then looked at him with contempt and said, Shen Yu, where is your moral integrity? Shen Yu, what is moral integrity? Can it be eaten? If not, what does he need it for? Then he looked at Lu Ning and said, then I'll choose some articles too, so that the three of us can stay in the same class again. Jian Nian said with a look of disgust, who wants to continue to be in the same class with you? You said you are such a big boy, why are you always messing around with us two girls? Shen Yu corrected him, I am following Sister Ning. On the other side, Class 13 is also discussing this topic. After all, everyone knows that after the midterm exam, you have to fill out the application form for placement. After taking a look at the information secretly sent by someone on his mobile phone, Lu Xian calmly announced, I choose liberal arts. End of this chapter. The school sweetheart soft green plum is sweet and wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 98. Chapter 98 I've grown so big that I haven't even touched a girl's hand. Hearing this, Shushu looked at Lu Xian with wide eyes, no, third brother, you actually chose liberal arts? Are you kidding us? It was as if he had heard the big news of the century. As far as the third brother's liberal arts scores are concerned, how difficult is it to think about studying literature? Chu Nan glanced at him, what do you know? The liberal arts class is full of beauties. An expression of understanding appeared immediately when he made the statement, and he looked at Lu Xian with admiration in his eyes. Why didn't I expect that dog is still my third brother, dog, and he is worthy of being the king of the sea. Then I will also choose liberal arts. Lu Xian kicked the other person and said, go away, beautiful women have nothing to do with me. Don't think that I am the same as you. I am very innocent. Haha, Shu Chen laughed rudely after hearing this, third brother, are you afraid you want to laugh me to death so that you can inherit my ant flower? Do you want to die? Lu Xian narrowed his eyes and threatened. She tried her best to suppress a smile and said, no, those girls who write you love letters every day, love you, are crazy about you, and bang against walls for you, do they know that you are so innocent? Lu Xian, I have grown so old that I have never even touched a girl's hand. How can I not be innocent? That seems to be the case. In recent years, there have been many girls who like third brother, but Sister Ning is the only one who can really stay with third brother. However, he was the first to not believe it when he said that he had never touched a girl's hand. Obviously he had seen third brother holding Sister Ning's hand as she got off the bus not long ago. The hand holding Sister Ning's is not a hand. Chu Nan, on the other hand, glanced at the direction of Lu Xian's cell phone, and the corners of his mouth curved slightly with a meaningful arc. Teaching exams is the teacher's magic weapon. Points and points are the lifeblood of students. Amid the complaints and sighs, the midterm exam came as scheduled. After taking exams for 2.5 consecutive days and finishing the last exam on Friday morning, the school took the unprecedented step of giving everyone a half-day holiday in advance. Although I was very nervous during the exam, it was just one thing after the exam. At the thought of having an extra half-day, everyone immediately forgot about the unpleasantness of the exam and only thought about how to spend the 2.5 days plus the weekend. Even though the scores will be announced when school starts next Monday, it does not prevent everyone from having fun in time. As Shen Yu was packing his things, he turned to Lu Ning and asked, Sister Ning, what are your plans for the weekend this time? Lu Ning, I'll probably finish my homework and play games at home on the weekends. That's so boring. We just finished the exam and we can't relax. Why don't we all go out and play together, Shen Yu suggested enthusiastically. Jian Nian heard the words and immediately nodded in agreement. Okay, okay, then he looked at Lu Ning with twinkling eyes. Ning Ning, let's go out together. Lu Ning didn't want to spoil everyone's fun, so she said, okay, where do you plan to go? How about going mountain climbing, Shen Yu suggested. Not very good, Jian Nian objected. It's so tiring to climb mountains. Besides, every time the school organizes outings, they either climb mountains or go to farmhouses. All the interesting mountains around here are climbed. Shen Yu heard the same thing. Why don't you play the script? I heard that a new script has been released, which is really fun. You can have this. I've often heard people say it recently. Ning Ning, what do you think? The two of them looked at Lu Ning together. Okay, Lu Ning nodded, she didn't care. Then it's settled, I'll call third brother and the others, and let's have some fun together. Shen Yu turned around and took out his cell phone to send a message to Lu Xian and others. Jian Nian has no objection. They are all acquaintances anyway. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The School Sweetheart Soft Green Plum is Sweet and Wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 99. Chapter 99, Third brother really doesn't like Sister Ning? Lu Ning returned to Song's house as usual on Friday. Early on Saturday morning, after breakfast, Lu Ning went back to the room to read a book, and planned to go out when the agreed time was almost there. Just at the door, she met Song Tingzi, who was returning from walking his dog. The latter glanced at her and said, "Want to go out?" The Song family has a purebred Samoyed, which is very beautiful. Lu Ning squatted down and played with it for a while, then stood up and said, "Well, I made an appointment with my classmates to play script killing. Can I come with you?" Song Tingzi asked. Lu Ning glanced at him in surprise. She thought that the other person would not be interested in this kind of activity. What's more, the people he went with were unfamiliar to him. Seeing that she was silent, Song Tingzi asked again, "Isn't it inconvenient?" Lu Ning, "No, if you want to go, let's go together. There's nothing inconvenient, but it's just more than one person playing together. She's afraid that he will feel uncomfortable. However, since he brought it up on his own initiative, I guess his worries should not exist. Wait for me." Song Tingzi untied the rope from the dog and let it play in the yard. Then he went back into the house and washed his hands, and then said to her, "Let's go." Arrived at the agreed place. When Shen Yu saw Song Tingzi beside her, her eyes turned into little dots with shock. She couldn't help but pull Lu Ning aside and said, "Sister Ning, why did you bring him here too?" "Lu Ning, it just so happens that he has nothing to do. Besides, didn't you say there were so many people and it was so lively?" "Yes, he said so, but that's all. He's not the one who should be anxious anyway." Jian Nian, on the other hand, looked in the direction of Song Tingzi with bright eyes, quietly gave Lu Ning a thumbs up and said, "Sisters, you are so awesome, you actually brought out my male idol." Lu Ning glanced at her sideways. "I remember, isn't your male idol a little star? Why did he become Song Tingzi again?" "Jian Nian, why don't you ask me to change my boyfriend? Also, my former boyfriend is not a small star, but he is a top-notch guy. Besides, who stipulates that there can only be one male idol?" "Okay, as long as you're happy," Lu Ning had nothing to say. After all, this is not her boyfriend. Jian Nian blinked and said excitedly, "But how did you coax him out?" Lu Ning frowned and expressed dissatisfaction with her choice of words. "What coaxing? He wants to follow him out." Jian Nian's eyes turned suspicious. The words "impossible" are almost written on his face. But considering Lu Ning's temperament, he wouldn't lie to her. So, does the other party really want to follow her out? Thinking of this, Song Tingzi couldn't help but look at Song Tingzi with a bit of inquiry. Do you simply want to make more friends, or? Her eyes immediately fell on her friend beside her. Tisk, it looks like there's going to be something good. After a while, Lucian and others also arrived. Seeing Song Tingzi, everyone's reaction was no different from Shen Yu's, especially the statement. Their eyes wanted to stick to Lucian's face. Can't wait to see something on his face. It's a pity that it didn't work. Is it possible that they really think too much? Third brother really doesn't like Sister Ning? Not willing to give up, he decided to test it out and said, why is that boy here too? He shouldn't be brought by Sister Ning, right? As he spoke, he secretly took a look at Lucian's reaction. Lucian, you should ask her this question. Don't think that he doesn't know what these guys are thinking. End of this chapter. The school sweetheart soft green plum is sweet and wild. Author, Pearfish. Chapter 100. Is chapter 100 too hasty? Lucian felt slightly confused. Although he acted like a normal person on the surface, his mood was extremely unhappy. He glanced in the direction of Lu Ning and Song Tingzi and frowned slightly. What does that girl mean? Bringing that boy with you, did you want to show that the step-brother and step-sister have a good relationship? Statement, haha, it's okay. Third brother, you don't like Sister Ning anyway. If you ask me, this pretty boy is pretty good looking, and he looks quite good with Sister Ning. Lucian squinted his eyes, looked over, and said in a cool tone, I suggest you go see an ophthalmologist. There must be something wrong with your eyes. Statement, tisk, you can't hold on anymore? That's it, you still say you don't like it? Duplicitous man. Hee, Shen said with a cheeky smile, I also feel that my eyesight has not been very good recently, and I can't see clearly. But, what do you mean by Sister Ning bringing that boy out specially? How would I know? Lucian's voice obviously lost his patience and became a little more irritable. He stated what he wanted to say, but Chunan grabbed his neck and said, let's go, come with me to see if there are any interesting scripts. Wait a minute, I haven't finished talking to the third brother yet. She said she didn't want to leave yet. Okay, let's talk later. Chunan dragged the person away without giving him a chance to speak again. Chunnan didn't let go of Lucian until he was far away from him. Chunan glanced at him, I only saw that you were about to be beaten. What? She said in a daze. Chunan simply couldn't bear to see how stupid he was. He was wandering on the verge of committing suicide every day, and he still felt that he was quite smart. Okay, he will solve the third brother's matter by himself, so don't get involved blindly. Stated his dissatisfaction, how could I be blindly cooperating? I was clearly trying to help him see his own heart clearly. Chunan, do you think others are as stupid as you? What do you mean? The statement looked confused. Chunnan, nothing. He was trying to explain to a fool. The statement was urgent, so she pulled him away and refused to let him go. He insisted on letting him speak clearly. No, as a human being, you can't reveal your bright spots. If you want to speak clearly, what's the point of speaking half-heartedly? Chunan asked patiently, why do you think the third brother chose liberal arts? Statement, isn't it because there are so many beauties in liberal arts classes? This seems to be what he told himself. Chunan glanced at him, and suddenly he didn't want to talk to him. He had no choice, he was too stupid. She understood the disgust in his eyes and suddenly felt blessed. So you mean, the third brother wants to major in liberal arts because of Sister Ning? But even if the third brother chooses an essay, there is no guarantee that the two of them will be placed in the same class, right? After all, there is not just one liberal arts class. Just for the 1/5 chance, is it too hasty? Chunan, there is still a chance to be assigned to the same class for essays, but there is no chance for theory. If it were you, how would you choose? Statement: if it were me, the selection of essays and theory would be the same. Anyway, I didn't pass any of them. But didn't you say that there are many girls in the liberal arts class? So I decided that I would also choose essays. Studying is such a boring thing. There are girls. The company of papers may stimulate my enthusiasm for learning a little bit. Chunan, why would he discuss this kind of issue with a fool? End of this chapter.